You know, when you spot like a single cockroach scurrying across your kitchen floor,
Yeah.
the biological reflex is pretty much
Oh,
universal.
yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah,
just instant disgust.
right. You don't try to negotiate with it. You don't, try to understand its grievances or whatever.
Or definitely don't.
You grab a rolled up newspaper, you apply blunt force, and you expect the problem to be eradicated instantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate display of disproportionate power. You just apply overwhelming physical force
Yeah,
and assume the disruption is permanently neutralized.
exactly. But imagine if, right as you brought that newspaper down,
Hmm.
the cockroach didn't just survive the hit.
Okay.
Imagine if it grabbed the newspaper out of your hand, multiplied into like a swarm of millions, organized a highly disciplined sit-in on your kitchen counter, and proceeded to completely rewrite the fundamental rules of pest control.
That is quite the visual, but it's accurate.
It is. And today our mission is to unpack a rapid-fire, genuinely mind-bending political saga out of India that unfolded between May and July of 2026.
Hmm.
For anyone tuning in who's fascinated by the mechanics of modern social movements, this is an absolute masterclass for you. We are looking at how a digital culture, specifically, the weaponization of Gen Z satire, collided with a massive, entrenched government apparatus and actually won.
Yeah, it's an incredible timeline. We are synthesizing a massive stack of live blogs, news reports, and timelines that cover the fallout of the NEAT medical exam paper leak.
Right, the NEAT exam.
Exactly. And the unprecedented rise of this youth movement calling itself the Cockroach Janta Party. Plus, the sudden resignation of Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan.
Which nobody saw coming.
Nobody. And I should establish right up front, because the sources we are looking at contain highly charged, deeply polarizing political perspectives from both the ruling BJP government and a fiercely critical opposition. We need to be very clear about our parameters here.
Yes, definitely.
We are remaining entirely impartial. We are not endorsing any political viewpoints or taking sides at all. Our objective is strictly to map the mechanics of how this historic youth movement unfolded, just tracking the claims and counterclaims from all sides.
Okay, let's unpack this. We start with the spark that lit the powder keg. So it's May 2026.
Right.
The-
The political calculation was likely that, minimizing them as pests would strip them of their legitimacy, like trying to reduce systemic failure to a mere nuisance in the eyes of the broader public.
But it completely backfired. I mean, it essentially handed the students their brand on a silver platter.
It really did.
So enter Abhijit Tipke. He's a 30-year-old Boston University graduate. He watches this unfold online, catches the insult, and the very next day he launches the Cockroach Janta Party, or the CJP.
Just incredible turnaround time.
Right. And you know what this reminds me of? It's the exact same psychological jujitsu the American revolutionaries used when the British tried to mock them with the song Yankee Doodle.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right, because the British meant it as this humiliating insult to call them like country bumpkins.
Hmm.
But the Americans took the song, made it their marching anthem, and just stripped the British of their rhetorical weapon. Didn't the government basically just do the exact same thing here?
Absolutely. Co-opting the vocabulary of your oppressor is a brilliant neutralizing tactic. I mean, when a government attempts to dismiss you as a pest and you proudly brand yourself as the unkillable, multiplying swarm, you are no longer defending yourself against the insult.
You're weaponizing it.
Nor weaponizing it, exactly. The CJP embraced the very traits of a cockroach. They operate in the dark, they are incredibly difficult to crush, and they outlast everything.
Wow.
And tactically, a satirical meme page can scale infinitely faster than a traditional student union. Within just a matter of days, their social metrics were actually eclipsing those of established legacy national parties.
Which is insane to think about. But virality alone doesn't topple a cabinet minister, right?
No, it doesn't.
Memes don't force resignations. Bodies in the streets do.
Clear.
And this is where the CJP executes a pivot that most digital movements, frankly, fail to make. Dipik literally flies back to India from the U.S.
He does.
And the CJP shifts from just, shitposting on social media to organizing around-the-clock physical sit-in at Jantar Mantar in New Delhi.
And the mechanics of this transition are critical to understand for you as the listener, because they utilize their explosive digital momentum purely as a recruitment and logistical tool to guarantee physical presence. The internet provided the raw anger and the satirical identity, sure, but Jantar Mantar provided the undeniable physical friction.
You can't just swipe past Jantar Mantar.
Exactly. A government can easily block a hashtag or, wait out a trending topic, but they cannot ignore thousands of students physically occupying the historic protest epicenter of the Capitol.
And that physical friction, it acts as this massive magnet for legacy activists. Sonam Wangchuck, the prominent climate activist, he doesn't just tweet a message of solidarity.
No, he goes all in.
He physically joins the students at Jantar Mantar and launches an indefinite hunger strike. And I think we need to pause on the biological reality of that for a second. He fasted for 26 days.
Yeah, that is severe.
It fundamentally shifts the CJP from this clever internet joke into a grave, physically grounded resistance with a literal ticking clock attached to it.
It really does. Wangchuck's involvement legitimized the movement in the eyes of the older generation, right? It bridged that gap between Gen Z digital tactics and legacy protest methods.
Totally.
A 26-day hunger strike causes severe, irreversible organ stress. It puts the government on a very public death watch timer. The stakes instantly transformed.
The intensity skyrockets.
Yeah.
And it culminates on July 20th. Wangchuck is hospitalized by this point, and the CJP calls for a Sansa Cello, meaning a massive march directly on Parliament.
And the response was not subtle?
Not at all. The state response is overwhelming. The live blogs describe central Delhi turning into a war zone. We're talking about heavy police deployment, water cannons, tear gas, serious injuries, and targeted internet blackouts to sever the protesters' communication line.
A total communications blockade.
Yeah. And the danger wasn't just contained to Delhi either. The sources highlight this one Reddit post detailing that CJP founder Abhijit Dipke was slapped multiple times by unknown individuals ahead of an address in Jaipur. Yeah, and one commenter on that thread dryly noted, protest, harder cause, clearly education system failed them.
That Jaipur incident is a turning point because it strips away any remaining illusion of digital safety. The CJP leadership was exposed to direct, decentralized physical retaliation. I mean, they were facing state-sanctioned crowd control in the capital and vigilante violence in the states.
See, this is where I really struggle to reconcile the sheer asymmetry of this conflict.
What do you mean?
Well, you have a satirical party literally founded as a joke just a month prior, suddenly attempting to outmaneuver riot police, internet blackouts, and the entrenched apparatus of the entire national government.
Right.
How does the CJP not just immediately fold the minute the batons come out? I mean, they seem entirely out of their depth.
They survived by completely abandoning the traditional political playbook. They didn't even attempt to negotiate through back channels, and they obviously couldn't match the government's physical force.
So what was their play?
Their strategy was absolute, unyielding endurance. You see, the establishment assumption is always that a student protest will eventually fracture. They'll run out of funding, or they'll be terrified into submission by police action.
Just wait them out, basically.
Yeah. But the CJP essentially forced the government to keep swinging the hammer until the optics of beating up medical students became politically toxic. They realized that persistence itself is a form of leverage.
Let's map out exactly how that political toxicity infected the ruling party. Because the BJP is forced into a defensive formation. Prime Minister Modi addresses the crisis on social media, promising to set up fast-track courts to ensure swift punishment for exam leaks. He emphasizes that nothing is more important than the welfare of the youth.
It is a highly calculated strategy of containment. The Prime Minister is offering a bureaucratic solution to a systemic flaw, but the silence on the immediate visceral issues is deafening. The official statements pointedly ignore the police brutality that occurred during the march, and they refuse to even acknowledge the core demand for Minister Pradhan's resignation.
Simultaneously, though, the ruling party initiates a vigorous counteroffensive. BJP Minister J.P. Nadda accuses the political opposition, specifically naming Rahul Gandhi, of selective outrage and exploiting the students for political mileage.
Which is a very common pivot.
Right. Nadda weaponizes the past, pointing out that during the previous UPA-era governments, there were allegedly 152 paper leaks with 0 convictions.
And that is a classic deflection tactic designed to normalize the failure. I mean, if the government can prove that the system has always been broken, it dilutes their specific culpability in the present moment.
Okay, that makes sense.
Meanwhile, BJP MP Bansuri Swaraj attacks the CJP's credibility directly. She holds a press conference accusing the movement of engineering quote-unquote fake narratives to deliberately inflame the public.
What kind of narrative?
She specifically calls out claims that Wangchuck's wife was dragged by her hair by police and that a 12-year-old girl was severely injured. Swaraj asserts that both claims were fact-checked by the authorities and found to be entirely fabricated.
Wow, okay. Which forces the CJP to fight a brutal two-front war. They are sustaining a physical occupation against riot police on one end, while actively defending their digital credibility against national spokespersons on the other.
Exactly. It's exhausting.
And right in the middle of this, the political opposition seizes the momentum created by the street protests to completely blockade parliament. Leaders like Mallikarjun Kharge and Akhilesh Yadav established this hardline condition. Absolutely no parliamentary business can proceed until Dharmendra Pradhan resigns.
Total gridlock.
Yeah. Yadav even brings the violence of the streets directly into the legislative chamber, demanding to know, will you tear the clothes of our daughters?
So you are looking at absolute systemic gridlock here. The government is trying to deflect blame to past administrations and accuse the protesters. The opposition is paralyzing the legislative branch to force a cabinet exit.
But amidst all this high-level political maneuvering, there is a massive, almost unbelievable historical irony sitting right at the center of this crisis.
Oh, this is the best part.
It really is. We dug into the archives on Dharmendra Pradhan. He didn't just drop into the cabinet from the sky.
No.
Nearly 30 years ago, back in the 1990s, Pradhan was a fiery student activist for the right-wing ADVP in Odisha, and his primary crusade. He built his early political career organizing protests against an exam paper leak.
The historical symmetry is just staggering.
I mean, a politician whose foundational political identity was forged in the outrage of compromised examinations is now the establishment figure presiding over the exact same crisis.
It's Shakespearean.
Yes. The young radical who took to the streets to fight a broken system spends 3 decades climbing the political ladder, only to find his office besieged by a new generation of young radicals fighting the exact same broken system.
It's wild.
So this isn't just a quirky trivia fact. How did this historical parallel actually impact the government's defensive strategy?
Well, it completely neutralized Pradhan's moral authority. When the opposition and the CJP highlight that specific hypocrisy, the government's traditional defensive lines just collapse.
Because they can't brush it off.
Exactly. Blaming the UPA era or deploying riot police doesn't work when the public realizes the minister used the exact same protest tactics in his youth. The hypocrisy becomes the dominant narrative, transforming Pradhan from a defensive asset into an unsustainable political liability for the cabinet.
And the pressure finally breaks the system. July 25th, 2026, the dam breaks. Dharmendra Pradhan formally resigns his post as Union Education Minister.
The defining moment.
And in true digital native fashion, the official announcement is preceded by a quiet update to his ex-bio. The title, Union Minister, disappears, replaced simply by MP LS, Sambalpur. It is the modern smoke signal of a political casualty.
And the capitulation is formalized in a scene that would have been, quite frankly, unimaginable just 6 weeks prior. A highly unusual joint press conference is convened.
Can't even picture this.
You have heavy-hitting union ministers JP Nadda and Jitendra Singh sitting down at a table alongside Sarv Das and Ashutosh Ranka, the spokespersons for a political party named after a household pest.
The optics of that table are just wild. The establishment is essentially forced to negotiate a surrender to a meme page.
That's exactly what it is.
And the concessions to end the 36-day protest are sweeping. Pradhan is out. The government guarantees the withdrawal of all FIRs against the protesting students, and we cannot overstate how critical that is.
Oh, it's huge.
An active FIR ruins passport applications and government job prospects.
Yeah.
So getting those criminal cases wiped clean is a massive logistical victory. Crucially, they also agreed to provide maximum compensation, per the rules, to the families of students who tragically died by suicide over the NEET fallout.
It is a masterclass in outcome-oriented protest. But analyzing the immediate aftermath reveals this fascinating cultural schism in how this victory was digested. The generational divide is incredibly stark.
It really is. The legacy politicians instantly filtered the victory through grand institutional rhetoric. Like, Rahul Gandhi releases statements claiming this as a massive triumph for democratic integrity. M.K. Stalin compares it to the legendary farmers' protests, contextualizing it within these grand historical epochs.
Very traditional political framing.
Yeah, exactly. But then look at Abhijit Dipki. The Gen Z founder of the CJP had actually been diagnosed with typhoid that very morning.
Rough timing.
Right, so he doesn't issue a sweeping manifesto or a triumphant video essay. He posts a simple picture of the Indian Constitution on X with the words, "Thank you," his very next post. Gonna take a nap? See you all in a little while.
That exhaustion is deeply revealing, honestly. It highlights the functional ethos of the CJP. They didn't mobilize to launch lifelong political careers or secure permanent cabinet seats.
No, not at all.
They mobilized because the systemic machinery broke, and they were just exhausted by the sheer labor of forcing adults to fulfill their basic obligations. Gitanjali Engmo, Sonam Wangchuk's wife, summarized their specific brand of activism perfectly. She praised Gen Z, saying they demonstrated courage without hate, patriotism without blind obedience.
Courage without hate.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, it forces a massive recalibration of how we view power dynamics. We are watching legacy political machinery, massive, well-funded, deeply entrenched, completely short-circuit when confronted by organized internet-native youth.
Yeah, it's a paradigm shift.
Are we looking at a fundamental fragility here? Are the traditional political playbooks completely obsolete against a demographic that can mobilize a national strike in a matter of weeks?
The traditional institutional defenses are undeniably failing. You cannot deploy a 20th century strategy of attrition against a 21st century adversary that thrives on decentralized chaos.
That makes total sense.
Deflecting to a previous administration's failures a decade ago just doesn't work when the current outrage is trending in real time. Deploying physical police force often backfires, generating viral footage that only accelerates the movement's growth and, radicalizes the moderates.
It's gasoline on the fire.
Exactly. The CJP proved that if you can sustain physical disruption while dominating the digital narrative if you can fact-check a press conference in real time while holding a physical sit-in, the old institutional walls will crack. The government was fighting a conventional war, the CJP was fighting an asymmetric one.
We started with a leaked medical exam, an encrypted file that shattered the futures of 22 lakh students. A dismissive insult intended to squash the outrage instead spawned the Cockroach Janta Party. We watched them bleed at Jantar Mantar, weather internet blackouts, shut down the national parliament, and ultimately force the historic resignation of the union education minister. It is a defining moment for modern accountability.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it leaves you with something fascinating to think about.
Okay.
Buried in the live blogs on the day of the resignation is a crucial tactical pivot. The CJP secured Pradhan's exit, the FIR withdrawals, and the compensation. But they didn't just pack up and disband.
Right.
They immediately issued a new set of demands, specifically calling for a formal public apology from the Rapid Action Force and the Delhi police for their conduct during the protests.
They moved the goalposts the second they tasted victory.
They realized their own leverage. So the question you have to ask yourself is this. Now that this internet-born movement has weaponized satire to achieve a historic real-world political decapitation, is the Cockroach Janta Party going to dissolve quietly back into their medical studies? Or are we witnessing the birth of a permanent, highly disruptive force that will fundamentally alter the math of mainstream Indian elections?
You tried to step on the bug, and instead you forced it to evolve. To you, the listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the absolute raw edge of digital culture and political power. Keep questioning the mechanics behind the headlines, keep pulling the threads, and we will catch you next time. You know, when you spot like a single cockroach scurrying across your kitchen floor,
Yeah.
the biological reflex is pretty much
Oh,
universal.
yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah,
just instant disgust.
right. You don't try to negotiate with it. You don't, try to understand its grievances or
Or
whatever.
definitely do.
You grab a rolled up newspaper, you apply blunt force, and you expect the problem to be eradicated instantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate display of disproportionate power. You just apply overwhelming physical force
Yeah,
and assume the disruption is permanently neutralized.
exactly. But imagine if, right as you brought that newspaper down,
Hmm.
the cockroach didn't just survive the hit.
Okay.
Imagine if it grabbed the newspaper out of your hand, multiplied into like a swarm of millions, organized a highly disciplined sit-in on your kitchen counter, and proceeded to completely rewrite the fundamental rules of pest control.
That is quite the visual, but it's accurate.
It is. And today our mission is to unpack a rapid-fire, genuinely mind-bending political saga out of India that unfolded between May and July of 2026.
Hmm.
For anyone tuning in who's fascinated by the mechanics of modern social movements, this is an absolute masterclass for you. We are looking at how a digital culture, specifically, the weaponization of Gen Z satire, collided with a massive, entrenched government apparatus and actually won.
Yeah, it's an incredible timeline. We are synthesizing a massive stack of live blogs, news reports, and timelines that cover the fallout of the NEET medical exam paper leak.
Right, the NEET exam.
Exactly. And the unprecedented rise of this youth movement calling itself the Cockroach Janta Party. Plus, the sudden resignation of Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan.
Which nobody saw coming.
Nobody. And I should establish right up front, because the sources we are looking at contain highly charged, deeply polarizing political perspectives from both the ruling BJP government and a fiercely critical opposition. We need to be very clear about our parameters here.
Yes, definitely.
We are remaining entirely impartial. We are not endorsing any political viewpoints or taking sides at all. Our objective is strictly to map the mechanics of how this historic youth movement unfolded, just tracking the claims and counterclaims from all sides.
Okay, let's unpack this. We start with the spark that lit the powder keg. So it's May 2026.
Right.
The NTA administers the NEET UG exam to nearly 22 lakh medical aspirants. Now, you and I already know the intense pressure cooker that this exam represents, right?
Oh, it's immense. It's a defining moment for these kids.
Yeah, this isn't just a test. It is a generational bottleneck for families who are just pouring their entire life savings into these coaching centers.
Hmm.
But before the ink is even dry on the OMR sheets, the integrity of the entire system just completely fractures.
Yeah, and the mechanics of the breach are what caused such immediate widespread panic. The question paper didn't just leak locally in one center. It should be encrypted chat channels. And I mean, when you have a leak moving at the speed of Telegram across a highly networked demographic of 22 lakh students.
It's instantly everywhere.
Exactly. The realization that the system is compromised happens almost simultaneously nationwide. So the CBI is forced to launch a probe, and the exam is ultimately canceled.
So the government is suddenly staring down a catastrophic loss of faith from one of the largest youth demographics in the world.
A nightmare scenario for any administration.
Totally. And here is where the political crisis management completely derails. On May 15th, Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan steps up to the microphone.
Right.
He admits the system failed. He uses this Hindi phrase, Rakshak hi Bakshak ban gaye, meaning the protectors have become the predators.
A strong statement.
A very strong statement. But then, in the heat of all this ensuing political pressure, he allegedly compares these furious protesting students to cockroaches.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, throwing a biological insult at a massive digitally connected demographic is just a severe tactical error.
To say the least.
The political calculation was likely that, minimizing them as pests would strip them of their legitimacy, like trying to reduce systemic failure to a mere nuisance in the eyes of the broader public.
But it completely backfired. I mean, it essentially handed the students